For the first time this week, we'll actually get to see Pat Kelsey's Louisville squad play in a legitimate game on today's episode of the show. We're identifying what three things I hope to see from the Cardinals this week. Stay tuned.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what is going on? Welcome into this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. The sports have stopped sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel continues to hook up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. As always, I want to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. For the first time this week, we get to see Pat Kelsey's Louisville Cardinals in an actual game as they make the trip down to the Bahamas. We'll identify what three things we hope to see from the squad in this 2-game exhibition series. We'll also transition over into recruiting, where there is a local basketball name to watch for. That is Jeffersonville's Tre Singleton. And then to conclude the show, we'll dive into a Monday mailbag segment. So a lot of great stuff to talk about. It's finally here. Now, I know it's not the official season, but it's the first time we get to see a Pat Kelsey-led Louisville team in legitimate action. I know it's exhibition games, but we haven't even seen this team play in an exhibition game, so it is definitely notable. Louisville will play its first game down in the Bahamas Hoops Summer League on Tuesday, so tomorrow, July 30th. They'll tip off at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You can stream the game on the 502 Circle Stream or listen to it on 93.9 The Ville. They will then turn around and play on Thursday, August 1st at 12 against the University of Calgary Dinos, and same streaming as well. But they'll play against the Bahamas in game one. So a lot of really things to break down here. For me, there are three things that I want to see from this squad. Now, let me go ahead and get this out of the way. Pat Kelsey said it about a month ago, and I sort of reiterate that because, well, Pat Kelsey said it, so Dalton Pence is going to say it. It's really hard to really put a ton of emphasis on the starting lineup at the moment. So whoever Louisville trots out there is the starting five. I wouldn't put too much emphasis on it right away because Kelsey said in his press conference about a month ago that whoever starts is basically just going to reflect whoever is showing out the most in practice at the time. So we're still a couple months away from the actual season that tips off in early November. So this is just sort of a way of getting extra practice. And that's one of the big benefits of getting this experience in the Bahamas. Yes, you get to have some bonding time with the team. Yes, you get to experience another culture. You get to play other teams, but you get that extended amount of practice time throughout the summer, something you wouldn't get access to unless you were going on this type of international trip. So great things there. But the three things for me really aren't pertaining to any one player or even the amount of offensive efficiency, because there's going to be some bumps in the road. There's going to be some highs and lows, but these three things I think can be achievable and will be achieved. It's just a matter of what that amount looks like. The first thing for me is energy and effort. It feels like that should be a prerequisite for playing any given game, but unfortunately, for the Louisville basketball fans, you've been accustomed to the lack thereof. And energy really has come in spurts. I mean, you see it here, you don't see it there. The effort, I mean, it feels like you never get a consistent 40 minutes of pure effort. So I want to see Pat Kelsey's team start to do what we haven't seen this program do for the past couple of seasons. That is give constant energy and give constant effort. Now, I'd take this one step forward. Pat Kelsey's whole mantra, if you will, is bringing that energy. I mean, look at his personality. He is a constant ball of energy. He preaches giving outstanding effort. It's in the motto that he promotes pretty much daily, trying to develop the culture within this program. So I want to see this team, show that energy on the court, show it for each other, give effort, even if the shots aren't falling. Yes, you want to see Louisville win the game. And I'm not saying that wins don't matter. I'm saying that even if the shots aren't falling, even if, the cohesiveness on offense just isn't there, even though they're communicating, you still want to see effort and energy, because those things, it doesn't take months to install that into, the program, because effort and energy should be, like I said, a prerequisite to stepping foot on the court. So that's the first thing for me. And sort of the top thing is, what does the energy look like? How does the sideline react? Do they pick their teammates up? Are they going out of the way to dive for loose balls? Are they communicating? Are they not taking a play off? All these things, I think it doesn't take months to be able to develop. So that's number one for me. Number two and number three, I just am a little bit interested to see how this is going to work. Number two is sort of a hybrid between the fast-paced offense and movement without the ball. This offensive scheme is one that we're not accustomed to. Pat Kelsey's offenses are perennially one of the fastest-paced offenses in college basketball. And we are being led to believe that nothing is going to change in that regard. You're still going to play really, really fast. That's not really been a staple of a Louisville basketball team really since I can remember. Yes, you go back to the Patino teams where transition was prioritized and you emphasize moving up and down the court in transition. But in terms of the half-court offense, the pace of play back in the early 2010s, basketball hadn't changed to be fast-paced yet. I think that you can look at, 2014-15 Golden State Warriors as when, the pace of play started to pick up, the prioritizing of perimeter shooting and more. So that was sort of in that style of play that you didn't play as fast as teams are playing now. So it's really hard to compare different eras, if you will, of basketball. Since 2015, about a decade ago, the end of the Patino era, Louisville's teams didn't really play fast. Mac's teams were pretty much known for not playing fast. And Kenny Payne's teams, we really didn't know what was going on offensively. They like to get out and move in transition, but the team really didn't have a set identity on the offensive end. So it's hard to really categorize the style of play there. I'm interested to see how that fast-paced offense looks. How are the players moving without the ball to generate open shots? Is it a situation where they're prioritizing more three-point looks, more backdoor screens, playing off of pick and rolls? How is this offense going to look? Now, I know it's not going to be a finished product, but I want to see where they're at in the process, how this is going to sort of look as we get into the later parts of the fall, heading into basketball season. So personally, for me, this is just an intriguing aspect of this team that I am really interested to see how it unfolds, because you can't really say that you're used to it as a Louisville fan. On the contrary, you can probably say the exact opposite. So that's the main thing for me on the offensive end. I understand you want to see shots fall. You want to see the team score a great amount of points. And of course I do. But I'm really more interested to see how they're getting into the offense, how they are getting shots. Is it going to be situations where guys get shots moving off screens, kicking out to open players off of screens? How is the big man position going to be utilized? How is James Scott, Cason Pryor, Noah Waterman, how are those guys going to be featured into the offense? A couple of different questions that I think all sort of boils back to fast-paced offense and movement without the ball. The third thing that I'm watching for is defensive versatility. Again, with Pat Kelsey likely tinkering with the lineups, different players are going to play with different guys, just seeing what sticks. And it's going to be a reflection of who's looked good in practice. So I'm not necessarily focusing on the personnel on the court. I'm focusing on who is guarding what position, because there are multiple guys on this team that really are solid at defending multiple positions. Abubakar Traore, Javon Hadley, Terrence Edwards, even Corin Johnson and Chucky Hepburn can guard both of the guard positions. You name it. There are players on this team that can guard 3, even upwards of 4 different positions, depending on the opposing personnel. So I want to see where the assignments lie. Now, of course, it's going to be opponent specific, but you do get a good glimpse of, the opponent's size on the court and how Louisville's going to react to that. How is Abubakar Traore going to be utilized defensively? How is Terrence Edwards, Hepburn, Johnson, Waterman, Pryor? The list goes on. James Scott, now, how is he going to be utilized? Is he going to be guarding the perimeter at times? Is he going to be strictly put in the middle and forced to guard the rim? Really interesting situations. It's more so the tendencies and the scheme that I'm focusing on here as it relates to like the individual performances, the scoring efficiencies, the final score. Although those are important, these are the aspects of the 2 hoop league or the summer league games that I'm looking at, because we're still a couple months away, from the Cardinals actually playing a regular season game in early November. So don't look too much into it. It's okay to find the positives and find the improvements throughout, but again, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. We're going to transition over into the basketball recruiting side, where the Cardinals are seemingly prioritizing a local recruit. We'll discuss what Tre Singleton brings to the table, why Louisville could end up pushing for his commitment, and more on the next segment of the show. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by Ibotta. Sandals, sunscreen, snacks for the kids. What do these have in common? You're probably buying a ton again this summer, but don't stress about the cost. Use Ibotta and get cash back on all of your purchases when you stock up on all of your summer essentials throughout the month of August. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys. So you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Right now, Ibotta is offering listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege. That's Ibotta, IBOTTA, in the Google Play or App Store, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege. Also want to take this time to tell you about our friends over at Factor. Look, this has been an interesting month for me. I made the decision at the beginning of July to sort of switch up my eating habits. Things were just sort of getting stale in taste, but Factor has really changed things up with their no prep, no mess meals. If you want to meet your wellness goals in time for the fall, thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto, Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat just for you. With over 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you always find new flavors to explore. Treat yourself to restaurant quality meals that feature premium ingredients. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use the code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month when your subscription is active. Cardinal fans, real quick before we get into the next segment, I want to once again reiterate that it is critical that you start to watch Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And into the second segment of this Monday edition of Locked on Louisville. Once again, appreciate you all for making us your first listen of the day. Tre Singleton has been a name that many fans before the month of July didn't really know about. And then he continued to show out on the Adidas 3 SSB AAU circuit, prompting an offer from Louisville and multiple visits from the Cardinals staff to his games throughout the month of the summer. Pat Kelsey and his assistants have been in attendance for the Jeffersonville standout. The 6'8", 215-pound forward averaged just under 15 or just over 14 points a game last season for Jeffersonville, 7.1 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, while shooting about 61% from the field. Now, Singleton really isn't that highly ranked. However, he has already started to see some of the great AAU performances pay off over the past couple of months. He was just ranked inside of the top 220 according to 24/7 Sports. And now, since then, he has risen to 193rd in the composite and 144th according to 247sports.com. Just inside of the top 30 power forwards and top 10 in the state of Indiana. Now, when you watch Singleton's game, it's pretty clear as to why teams are starting to come around on his recruitment, because at 6'8", he does a lot of different things that 6'8" guys usually shouldn't be able to do. I really like what Adam Finkelstein said, director of scouting for 24/7 Sports. In his evaluation back earlier this month, actually 2 weeks ago yesterday, he mentions this. While he's not a totally explosive athlete, he showed good balance through contact and an associated ability to make tough layups and traffic. He also has some mismatch skill with his ability to make spot-up shots out to the three-point line and put the ball on the floor with both hands. He's also a quality passer with good instincts and feel for the game. Sort of a tweener in size. He plays larger than his size. Like the wingspan sort of compensates for that lack of vertical height, being only 6'8". But he is, despite being 215, really, really strong. Plays really strong. That is shown on the offensive and defensive glass, his ability to finish through contact at the rim. So I think at the very least at the next level, he's going to be able to be a rim runner in college, prioritizing scoring around the rim, running really well for his size, moving in transition, and also, being efficient and effective on the glass. So you look at how Pat Kelsey prioritizes big men and their skill sets, ability to finish around the rim at a high level, which he's shown the ability to do that, offensive and defensive rebounding, and moving in transition. As Finkelstein mentioned, Singleton isn't really the most uber athletic player, but the skill set is intriguing because he's a good passer. The potential to add outside shooting is there. And I imagine Kelsey is looking at this player thinking he does a lot of things really well now, but he's just scratching the potential or scratching the surface of the potential that he can reach. So it's no surprise to me that Louisville is starting to, quote unquote, prioritize Jeffersonville's Tre Singleton in an article from Michael McCammon, literally titled "Louisville's Prioritizing Jeffersonville's Tre Singleton." Even though he's ranked a little bit lower, he's starting to add some Power 5 offers. Clemson and Notre Dame, Purdue, Northwestern, looking throughout the list, Butler has offered, Wake Forest, Xavier, St. Louis. He's going to continue to rack up some offers as he rises up the boards. I personally think this is a top 100 player that we're looking at. It's just going to take some time for him to rise up those rankings. But Louisville has been in attendance in multiple games, whether it's in Augusta, whether it is in, I think, was it Rock Hill in North or South Carolina? But nonetheless, I want to read you some quotes from Michael McCammon's article of Cardinal Authority, Louisville's 24/7 sports site. Singleton said it's big playing in these types of events and playing against great competition, talking about the AAU circuit. He goes on to say, speaking of Louisville, we're still building a relationship, but it's been really good, and I'm really looking forward to continue to build on it. We haven't set up anything yet, but I will 1000% be visiting over there. Louisville just offered this month, so the Cardinals are going to continue to get involved. The local aspect of things is definitely going to help out if Louisville continues to prioritize Singleton. So he is definitely a player that you need to be watching moving forward, and he could ultimately be, who knows, maybe the first high school commit of the 2025 recruiting cycle for Pat Kelsey and company. So we'll definitely keep our eyes on this recruitment. To conclude the show, we will be diving into the Monday mailbag segment, some great football, great basketball questions that we will answer coming up in the next segment. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. Unfortunately, we're in the dog days of summer where there's not many sports going on. We're getting closer and closer to football, but still about a month away. Regardless, FanDuel lets me keep the sports going in the transition period. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. Boosts and bonuses daily. There was an any sports boost yesterday, so I put some money on Louisville City to score in both halves and win the game. They did just that. Shout out to the guys down on River Road. Head over to FanDuel and get your large win. Start making the most out of the end of summer. FanDuel continues to be the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And already into the final segment of this Monday edition of Locked On Louisville, we're diving into the Monday mailbag. Some great questions, football and basketball. Since we've been talking about basketball, let's address the basketball questions first. And I feel like people have already watched this show before even answering, because the first question is, who do you think will be Louisville's leading scorer in the short Bahamas trip coming up this week? I don't think, well, here's the thing. If you're asking for leading scorer, I guess you're taking the averages of both games, which makes things infinitely harder to predict. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say Kason Pryor. I think Pryor, really took a step forward last year for South Florida. I just think that the mismatch that he provides on the court, I'm going to go with Pryor to be the leading scorer, statistically speaking, from an averages perspective in this opening little 2-game stint down in the Bahamas. Do you think it is more important to see scoring at a high level or better defense? Well, defense is tougher to teach in terms of a time frame standpoint. So I think that if you see better defense right away, that's probably going to be more encouraging than if the shots are falling at a high level, because I think that this is going to be a really good offensive team. But if they show right away that defense is going to be at the forefront of what they do and they play really good defense, then I think that it would be probably more encouraging in late July, early August than, great offense at the moment, just because of how tough it can be to play really good defense and instill the defensive culture. So moving on over to football, with your schedule preview series coming up at the beginning or at the middle part of August, who is this year's trap game for the football team? That is a really good question. I've sort of gone back and forth with this question because there's a couple games that I look at. The first one for me is Georgia Tech on Saturday, September 21st. I think that Georgia Tech is going to be better than advertised. They gave Louisville a run for their money, albeit it was the first game last year. They held their own against Georgia through the duration of that game. They beat North Carolina. Yes, it is at home for Louisville, which is great, but Brent Key has that team looking really good. They return a lot of production on offense and defense. So I think that Georgia Tech is probably the trap game that people are just overlooking at the moment. If it wasn't for that, at Virginia is one, and at Stanford, because Virginia, seemingly Louisville never plays good down in Charlottesville. So for that reason alone, they're on this list. And then at Stanford, just coming off of a bye week, long trip across the country, it just feels like that could be a proverbial trap game for me. But I'm going to go with Georgia Tech, Virginia, and Stanford in that order. Does it matter margin of victory this season for Louisville football? The most important thing is winning the games, but style points 100% do matter as it relates to national perception. And if you're winning, like Florida State last year, Florida State had a lot of close victories, and I think that hurt the perception of their 13-0 record, which is total BS, but it's just the way that things are right now. And the way that the ACC is perceived. So, yes, margin of victory does matter, especially in big games. If you can get some big-time victories like you did last season over Notre Dame, that's huge. But squeaking out multiple victories, albeit a victory is a victory, and that at the end of the day, that is what's most important. But when it comes to playoff consideration, if you're sitting like right there on the bubble, and there are 3 other teams in contention for like one spot, having that resume, having the wins, but having some convincing level, having some convincing margin of victories, you can't tell me that definitely won't help. So the final question of the show today is going back to the football side of things. It is geared up. I'm telling you, English is just challenging for me today. The season is geared up towards being a really solid one. What is your prediction for the team? I assume you mean from a record standpoint. I'm going to go 10-2. That's where I've been sitting. Some people are saying 9-3. Some people are saying 16-0. I'm going to go 10-2 here. I think that Louisville will be better than they were last season. Another year of Jeff Brom with continuity in this program. Personally, I just think that they're going to handle business. They need to win a handful of the Miami, Kentucky, Notre Dame, Clemson games. They need to not have the annual trip-up game, but I'm going to go 10-2 with another appearance in the ACC championship game, and they're going to put themselves in a really, really good position to get to the first 12-team college football playoff. So I just want to mention this in terms of scheduling. It's going to change a little bit. I'm holding the safeties preview for August, so likely the first episode or second episode in August will be the final position preview for the safeties position. The last episode of the month of July will come on Tuesday evening or Wednesday morning. It will be reacting and breaking down the first exhibition game in the Bahamas Hoops Summer League between Louisville and the Bahamas. So just wanted to get that out there in case you had any questions on scheduling. We're almost to August. Football is just over, I should say, a month away. That is going to wrap up this Monday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here